ask you, but I forgot to ask.
Read your text.
Good morning. Good morning. Let's call Rankin County Board of Supervisors to order, August 15th, a little bit after 9 o'clock. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Craig Slade to have our invocation, please.
Let's bow. Father, we come before you. We thank you, Father, for your presence here with us today. We thank you for this meeting, for the gentlemen that you have placed in authority over us. Father, I thank you that you've elevated them to this position and you have given them, Father, the privilege of serving our community. Thank you for their willingness to do that, to sacrifice their time, their effort, their energy, even their resources, Father, to carry out their requirement of service. Father, I thank you for the privilege that we have to assemble in this country, to gather freely, Father, to consider the business of the county together, and Father, that together we can determine through your will what is best for all of the citizens of this county. Thank you for the way that you have blessed our county, provided for our county, and that you give us the opportunity to live in such a great community. Thank you for our men and women who fight for the cause of freedom wherever they may be. Father, protect them, bring them home safely, and protect their families as they wait for their return. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Craig. Okay, at this time, we have public comments and recognition. And with that recognition of a contract between Rankin County and Motorola for wireless communications upgrade, this time I've got Mr. Hoopy Stringer, our county administrator, and Bob Wedgeworth, the Rankin County Emergency Operations. Bob, if you'll come on up too, I'd like to kind of tag team and
Come on, I want to sit on the back row for a minute. What we want to do, Mr. President, is recognize that we have executed, or we are in the process of the final execution, but have approved the contract with Motorola. And that contract is not only with Motorola, but it's also with the state, with the MISWIM system, which is very much involved. And what's important here is that this will replace the current system that we have. And our communication system in this county is part of the very basic infrastructure of this county, and where we do the day-to-day operations with organizations like the sheriff, but also just terribly important when we get into the emergency conditions. And we have to have communications throughout the county. As we all know, this county has grown in the urban areas, but also more people have moved out into the rural areas. And we have to be able to respond. The current communication system we have goes back to 1996. It's an analog system. It's no longer manufactured. Spare parts are becoming harder and harder to obtain. Takes about 18 to 24 months to build out a new system. And if we don't get started now, we may find ourselves sometime a year or so, 2 years, 3 years from now, that we don't have a communication system when we absolutely need it worse. Now, to the credit of a lot of people in this room, because it is not something that we have just done here at the county level or even at the WCC level. It is the people in this room. All of you have been involved in the fire departments, police departments, and so forth in deciding what type of system we need and how to go about doing it. So we just want to recognize everybody here this morning and say we appreciate what's been done. And so with that, I want to thank the WCC, Mr. Huff, WCC, and everybody for cooperating. Let me tell you what's important about WCC. When we put the two systems together, I'm going to tell you a little bit more than what I know about something here now. But since I have the floor doing this, I'll do that. The WCC, the MISWIM system, is what is called a primary mobile system. And when you think about what it supports, the reason for that is supports highway patrol, wildlife fisheries, people who are outdoors mainly. The system we have here in the county, our system, also does that, but it also supports what's called the portable radio. The radio that you have, that the firemen carry with them. the deputies care with them when they go inside. They have to be able to communicate. You put those two together, we have expanded coverage, better coverage throughout the county, and we save money. What did we save? We started off as we were gonna do a unique county system. The cost was gonna be something like $11.5 million. By the time we were able to combine with Miss Wynn, get a better system, better coverage, we were able to bring that price down by using some of their controllers and so forth, which you never see, but it's integral to the system, down to 9.1 million. So it's a better system at a less cost, provide better coverage in the future and into the far future. So I want to thank Bob, WCC, all of you who have worked on this system to keep Rankin County on the cutting edge as we go into the future. Anybody want to say anything
I
else?
think you summed it up. Wireless Commission, we'd like to welcome Rankin County and all agencies there onto the system. We look forward to working with you to better both systems. As Mr. Hoopy says, it does increase coverage for both of us. Y'all had areas that you had coverage issues with. We had areas that we do. Some of the reservoir chiefs here has problems on the reservoir. This is going to solve those problems. So it's a synergistic approach to emergency communication.
And so what we'd like to do is we'd like to get you, the board, up here. We'd like to have a group picture.
Okay, does that,
So let's get,
yeah, we want to include everyone out in the audience to
Yeah.
please step forward, you know, whether.
Please.
Fire chiefs.
Fire chiefs,
All of-
well, fire chiefs, police officers, anyone in communications.
Without your input. And the
Let's
other
just stand
thing-
back here and let them stand in front of us.
Start working.
Really helpful. Really helpful.
Share with me.
So the chief couldn't make it, huh? Well, we glad to have you here, man. Jay Bishop. Glad to have you here. Hey guys, good to see you, man. Well, we ought to be good for 20 years now, right? Isn't that the way it goes?
Good morning.
Yeah, y'all good.
This is not a photogenic group.
You know, incidentally, the people standing up here represent about 3,300 users. The sheriff and others have started a couple of years ago as they're replacing their portable radios, buying the radios that work with this system, so that whenever we turn the switch, we don't have to go out and buy hundreds of radios overnight. That's a real savings in the long run. So, why don't you?
All right, 1, 2, 3. Couple more. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3.
Chuck, did that camera work?
Thank you.
I don't really understand.
Thanks for taking that.
Our people. If you'd seen it, hey, Ken. Great.
Thank you guys so much.
Everybody doesn't have to stay if they don't.
No, if you have other, except for the, I don't know, Bob, you may not need to stay. I don't know if you got something pressing, but anyone else that wants to leave, please feel free if you've got other things to do. Okay, thank you so much again from the Board of Supervisors. We've been working on this for approximately 3+ years. And Scott, I just want to tell you, I wish I'd have known you weren't in this picture because I think you were very integral in helping us to get this part, and I do appreciate you more than you know. So make sure we got Scott's name involved in that also, Chuck, if you would, in that article. Just put not pictured.
And at this point also, you know, Paula Motorola
there you go.
worked extremely hard on this.
Probably harder than most, and I know better than Bill for sure.
Probably should have been in the picture.
Yes.
They declined.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for everyone that's been involved in this process, and it's going to be a great time for everyone in the future of Rankin County.
Take care of it for the next 20 years.
You got it. So, all right, moving on, we've got old business minutes approval from July 31st, August 4th, and August 6th, 2014.
So move.
Got a motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Bishop. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Got the consent agenda items.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Mr. Bishop, second by myself. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. John Sullivan, tax assessor.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Few items, item A, petition change 2013 real property assessment roll.
Motion to approve. Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Item B, request to void the tax sale of 11, 12, and 13 tax sale. This property was condemned by the county and sits in the flood zone.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Bishop. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
And item C, request approval of 2014 homestead deletion list.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Johnson, second by Mr. Morrison. Any questions? All in
Hey,
favor?
yeah,
Yes.
I do.
Okay.
What is the deletion list? Is this something that's generated from our investigations, or is this standard?
No, it's still standard.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Any more questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
All right, item D, authority to sign the real and personal property assessment rolls for 2014.
Motion approved. Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
And item E, request approval for the application for the certification of 1 mil as amended.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mr. Charles Parker, County Consulting Engineer.
Thank you, sir. First item I have on the agenda is our old Highway 49 drainage improvements project. This morning, I'm recommending approval of pay request number 1 to Thornton Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $64,307.07 and authority to issue that check.
Motion approved. Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Buster, do you know off the top of your head how much time they have on that job?
The total contract time, I do not recall. Tim, do you recall the time? It's several months.
Yep. But they're moving along.
Yeah, they're making progress. I'll be happy to get that contract time for you.
Walter just wants it sped up.
I know.
I think he's got something down the road he's looking at.
Nobody likes
He,
the roadblock down there.
Yeah, Mr. Bishop, he mentions that to me fairly often.
Understandably so.
Yes, sir.
Moving right along.
Okay, next item I have on the agenda is our old Fannin Road reconstruction project. I'm recommending approval of pay request number 20 to Southern Rock LLC in the amount of $388,117.82 and authority to issue that check.
Motion approved.
Cool. Got a motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Bishop. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Also, under our old Fannin Road project, I'm requesting approval of a subcontract between Southern Rock LLC and C.E. Ward Construction, and requesting authority for the president to sign that document This is a subcontractor that was not part of the original, some work that Edmund planned on doing, some concrete work, what it amounts to, on some minutes. And rather than pull some of his people off of some other things they were doing to do that, he wanted to add a subcontract, which is common.
Okay.
So I recommend approval of that and authority for the president to sign this morning.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Johnson. Questions? Buster, I got one question on, and I know we talked a little bit about it. If you can see what we need to do about, we had a meeting not too long ago, I guess, with Southern Rock and I guess the state as far as some of their supplemental agreement or whatever, I don't know, some of their payments.
Yes, sir.
Is there any way you can get to the bottom of that issue and find out?
Well, we are working on that. You know, they've done an original agreement in the meeting.
Right.
Verbal agreement of what MDOT requested in there and just stated basically that whatever the engineer recommended on that with respect to time and so forth would be fine, which we did. And they came back then at a later date and wanted some additional information and wanted some more data from the contractor, you know, comparing what his original time schedule was from the start of the project as to what he feels it is now. It's as much of a paperwork issue as anything, but to answer your question, we are working on that and trying to expedite it because it involves several $1,000s.
So he's gonna have to go back and recreate or generate all these documents that y'all already
To
worked
some
on for all these
extent,
months?
yes, sir.
Does he understand that?
Yes, sir. We
Well, yeah, he understands it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Do we-
not happy about it. And I don't blame him, but anyway.
Okay.
So going forward, then, I guess we know that they're not gonna just take your word for it, that he needs to
Sure,
show them.
sure, they wouldn't as far as what was reasonable.
Yeah, because I think there was some negotiation between Southern Rock and also the county, from all indications, correct, on some verbiage and everything, so it,
Oh, yes, sir, no, because we've been working with him because we'd like to see it resolved. Not as
Right.
much as he would because it's his money he's
Correct.
talking about.
right,
But it needs to be resolved and really shouldn't have come up like that.
okay.
But,
We are close on finishing all the drainage aspect of that project, right?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. The project is moving along.
Yeah, it's moving really well. What's,
So now's probably a good time for him to get rid of all them old covers then.
Yes, sir.
sitting out there? What's-
I'll get in there.
And I know
Thank
I'm
you.
putting you on the spot here, but we
That's
got a
all
lot of people here that may be interested in that, travels that road. What is, and I'm not giving you down to the minute, but what are we looking at in reality
We're
of
still talking about the end of the year,
end of the year?
but that could change.
Right,
Please don't hang me on that.
No,
But,
no.
That's 97 days, 27 minutes, and 33 seconds.
Plus or
right.
minus 2 seconds, yes.
You got
That's
it.
that's still the goal, and I've discussed that with Edmund, and, you know,
Yeah.
it seems like by the end of the year.
Okay,
2015.
But that may be construction basically complete and not ready to turn it loose, you understand? Because
Right.
there are a lot of different inspections that have to take place.
Yes, sir.
Brown, whatever.
That's still the goal. Yes,
okay.
sir.
Yeah, good deal.
All right, with no more questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is our Ehrlich Road extension. I'm recommending approval of pay request number 10 in the amount of $84,775.97. Joe McGee Construction Company Incorporated and authority to issue that check.
Motion approved.
A motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Bishop. Any questions?
Yeah, I do. What's, I know the rains, delays and things, what's the estimated time for putting the surface down?
Well, you mean to start putting the surface down?
Right,
Well,
because it looks like the dirt work's ready.
Well, it's getting close. It's not ready yet.
Okay.
I was by there early this morning, but to answer your question, I would hope within the next couple of weeks, we would be well on the way with that project, because as you stated, it's in pretty good shape. Weather's just messed him up. you
Right.
know, Right
Well,
here.
yeah, well, I know the rain has, and, you know, and he's well ahead of his contract,
Oh, yeah.
so, but, as Mr. Wilcox said, there's some in this room that would,
Sure.
love to know about that.
And I understand, and, you know, we have to completing the road bed, and then we have to do some work with the signal out there, you know, to get it where it's functioning properly for the
Right.
road. But
Okay.
it's all falling in place, and, you know, if I had yes or hope or something, I'd say within the next couple of months, everything would be done.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any more questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. The last item I have on the agenda is I'm recommending approval of a utility permit for Southern Pine Electric Power Association to construct a 25 kV primary underground line along across Sage Hill Road and installed between 1332 North off Highway 468 on Sage Hill Road at 132 Sage Hill Road. And they will be, basically, they'll be boring under the road, is what it amounts to.
Okay. Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Mr. Morrison. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Slade, before you get started, I'd like to, we do have one person in the audience that I'd like to recognize, and that would be my mayor out there for the mayor of Brandon, Butch Lee. Thank you so much. I see you in the way corner. I didn't see you until
Yeah.
Mr.
That's in the
Johnson.
corner this time.
So, welcome to the meeting. You're welcome. Mr. Slade?
Mr. President, item A under my section is a matter. We're going to involve ourselves in a discussion of the issue of the commodity contract low bidder, Eurotech Holdings, Inc., and we'll have an opportunity for potential action if the board chooses to go in any particular direction that Eurotech Holdings, Inc. is unable to perform under its commodity agreement. This is the semi-annual bid that we take. And by the way, Bridget's here and Mr. Dale are here as well in the event we need some additional information about this process. In our semi-annual bid process, we accept bids from multiple bidders on semi-annual commodity contracts. The low bidder on this immediately passed commodity contract is Eurotech Holdings, Inc., and they provide a commodity related to road work. And we can let Mr. Dale and Ms. Bridget explain in more detail exactly what they do. Over a period of time, we've experienced, I say we, both Mr. Dale and Ms. Bridget have experienced difficulty with communications with this company. As POs are issued, there is a time period for a response from the commodity supplier to schedule the work. And the experience is, I don't want to put words in there, but the experience is that we have great difficulty getting any sort of response out of this company to actually schedule the work. The most recent example of that is that we've needed work done at Live Oaks subdivision. The PO was issued, Bridget helped me, in early August, I think it was, or I'm sorry, July 23rd. We had an August 23rd date, and the numerous attempts to communicate with the contact person went forth. Mr. Dale called, tried to get it scheduled, and what's been happening is, in this particular example, is what has been happening fairly consistently along through the process. Difficulty getting any sort of communication. Bridget and Mr. Dale asked me to get involved. I wrote a letter to the local contact and the home office explaining to them that under Mississippi law, this board has the ability to look at the commodity contract situation that we find ourselves in with a low bidder and make a determination that this company is unwilling or unable to perform, which then frees us up to move from that company to the second low bidder under that commodity. All right? And so what we are suggesting to the board today is that the board hear these issues of a total failure of communication from the company back to us, hear these issues and consider whether or not that constitutes the inability to perform, the unwillingness to perform, which then frees us up to move to that second low so we can move on and get these projects scheduled. The law allows that. Mississippi Code annotated under the bid law, 31-713, subparagraph F. If you're interested, when necessary to ensure ready availability of commodities for public works and timely completion of public projects, no more than 2 alternate bids may be accepted by a governing authority for commodities. No purchases are to be made from the alternate bids unless the Board of Supervisors finds that the low bidder is unable to perform. That's what we're asking you guys to consider about Duratec on the basis of their failure to communicate. After I got involved and put them on notice that the board would consider whether or not they can perform, we got emails. And so it's been a problem from early on in this contract with this particular provider. It's been a problem. It hasn't gotten better. And we ought not be in a situation where the lawyer has to get involved to prompt even communication.
Right. Did they
That's
not
what's-
also, from indication, did they not also extend out where their starting date was
yeah.
proposed from
Yes.
the start to extend it out?
In this particular case, the reply to the suggestion that the board would consider whether this constitutes an inability to perform, the reply was a crew has been scheduled for some date in late September, September the 18th.
And they were supposed to have started when?
August the 23rd.
Yeah.
No, that was the required date on the purchase order. The purchase order was issued July 23rd, and that really wasn't to complete all the work necessarily, but just give us some communication as to the date that they plan to start so we get the project.
So what is the 23rd date? Is that the deadline?
Purchase orders are when they're issued, it automatically, it's a 30-day period.
Okay.
Just to give us some kind of indication to start. We understand whether they push that purchase order further out, that's understandable, but it's just, and I have, to be clear, Mr. Burns has called me back, he just was unable to give me a start date.
Okay.
It's just this project, I think, is something that's been put on hold for a little while anyway, we're trying to get it done as soon as possible.
Right. So, and just to sum it up, I guess, without going into big detail, basically, it is a curb, Mr. Dale, is that right? It is a curb, sir? Right, curb leveling project, and that has to be done prior to us overlaying Live Oaks Boulevard, and that's a must. That's one of those, and I've got a lot of people out there that have been after this for years and years, but to get to that point, you do have to level the curbs before we can even get to that point, so.
Right. They've got, some form of a scheduling process now. Apparently, they are intending to go out in September. My point is that, based on the history that we have with the company.
Right.
My suggestion would be that the board, I'm not suggesting the action of the board, I'm suggesting that an option is that the board can find that this company has demonstrated that it is unwilling or unable to perform in a timely manner and/or communicate.
Right.
And that as a result of that, our road department and our purchasing clerk are authorized to move to the second low bidder, the alternate bidder.
Let me ask.
For work in the future.
And let me ask, what the low bid, do we have a price on the low bid, and what's the next low bid?
I don't know that information, Greg.
When do we bid this?
These were awarded on June 13th to start July 1st, just on our normal 6-month.
Okay.
Right.
And Bulldog Construction was the alternate that we awarded, and theirs was, low bid for more than 500 pounds, $8 a pound. Duratec was $7.89 per pound.
Okay. All right. So your recommendation is because, and I understand that, what it does, it just prolongs and what I'm fearful of is, if we're having a communication breakdown like that already, if we get started out there and all of a sudden we have other hiccups, then that's gonna prolong it even further. And then we'll get into the winter months, and then all of a sudden it'll be the asphalt. It's just a snowball effect.
If I may, I think what we are seeing rightly or wrongly, it may be misinterpreted, but what we are seeing, I think, in some of these situations is that our contractors are not as responsive as we would like them to be.
Right.
This is one of the blinking lights that we need to turn our attention to.
Right.
So that all of our suppliers who are under contract with the county understand that we would like to be treated fairly.
Correct.
Along with their private customers. We would like the same attention.
Okay.
And so my suggestion would be that if the board is of a mind to, on the basis of what you've been told, you can find that this particular supplier has demonstrated either an unwillingness or an inability to perform, and that Bridget is authorized to move to the other supplier, the first alternate, for contracts of this type in the future.
Okay. All right.
Do we need to add that to the agenda, or? can
No,
we
sir, it's
just-
actually on there, and
Okay.
potential action is there, Jay.
I see it, okay.
Okay, well, I make that in the form of a motion to move to the next low bidder.
Second.
Excuse me, Mr. President, I'm with Eurotech. May I address the board, please? Regarding some of the inaccuracies, I believe that the board attorney has projected. He said that we have been unresponsive. I
Yeah,
have
it was.
responded in a timely manner to phone calls and emails regarding this matter to the best of my ability, and provided the information that I had at the time that was available to me. Now, I do realize I've been on the other side. I've been Public Works Director, County Engineer. I understand the necessity of timely responses in order to schedule projects. And I know that an item such as this, when the people phone calls are calling every day wanting to know what's going on and everything, that it does provide a negative atmosphere. And now, in our defense, what has been the delay is we've had a timely project, labor intensive up at the University of Tennessee. Due to unforeseen underlying soil conditions, we were delayed. We were put on hold on a day-by-day basis by the engineers there about trying to get this matter resolved. And as soon as we were able to get some type of action from the engineers about how they wanted to address these, we were able to provide a date. The letter that Mr. Slade talked about, I believe I received it. It was provided on Tuesday of this week. And then Wednesday, we did respond with the September 18th date. And again, I apologize for the delay. I realize that like I say, I know you've gotten some heat from your constituents. I talked to the homeowner association president when we were out there shortly after I met with Dale, when we were getting the measurements necessary to figure out a course of action. And I was talking to him. Now, I didn't give him a date or anything like that. I just told him that this was a process that we were working on, working with y'all, trying to get this matter resolved. And so, again, I realize that that's not what you want to hear, and I do apologize for my front office's inability to give us a date
Right.
sooner.
And I appreciate, not to cut you off, I appreciate your comments, and as disheartening as it is, sometimes we have to take action on, because we do, our business is our constituents, and I understand, your problems that you have, but also you've got to look at, we've got to look at our total picture of our people out in Rankin County. And what this can do and what it has done is going to potentially delay the inevitable of, if it gets off into the cold weather where we can't overlay, then all of a sudden it could possibly get into 2015. So, I'm cognizant of your problems and stuff like that you may have had in Tennessee, but I have to deal in Rankin County. So, I appreciate it. But I've got a motion and a second on the table.
Oh,
If I could, one more thing, please.
Okay?
The attorney was asking that you direct this motion, also direct purchasing clerk to go to the alternate bidder for future needs. However, under that same section of the MCA that.
Mr. President, if we can, he's not, are you an attorney? Are you a lawyer?
No, but
Okay,
I-
and
okay.
Mr. President, I would ask you to just cut this off and let me explain.
Okay.
What he's getting at.
Sir.
Cite something that.
Yes, why don't you
Attorney
submit,
General-
why don't we let you submit a
Yes.
letter? You submit a letter to us and we'll make it part of this record. Mr. President, if you will.
Yes, sir.
I'd like,
That'd be
as a
a-
part of your motion, I would appreciate if you'll amend, if you'll allow me to amend your motion to allow this gentleman or his company to submit whatever documents they would like to submit in opposition to the request that I've made on behalf of the county.
Right.
And it can be a part of the record. And that way, whatever he feels like needs to be said on their behalf will be in the record.
In the
We won't
record.
have to go through all of this right here in an
Gotcha.
open board meeting with a lot going on.
Well, I'll amend that
So,
motion to.
Y'all are allowed to submit whatever you need to submit. in
I'll
your
amend,
events.
and I'll amend that motion to reflect the, any kind of letter that can be provided to the county and be made part of the minutes.
Thanks.
So, and I've got a second by Mr. Morrison. Do I have any more questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, items B through J, Renee, I'm right, they are all the same day, right? These are all nuisance properties. If I may, Mr. President, I would request that items B through J, under my section, we take as one motion. These would be to set nuisance hearings for District 2 and 3 and 4 properties on August the 28th of 2014. Chad Horton, Michael Arney, Louise Townsend, Christy Lynn Wyatt, James Gwaltney, April McKenna, Lori Rhodes and Albert Stevens, David Reed, and Deidre Blue. These would all be nuisance hearings, August 28, 2014 at 9 a.m.
I'll make a motion at this public hearing.
Got a motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Johnson, and that is B through J, correct?
I'm glad you combined those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I'm not looking forward to August 28th myself.
You'll be here. Got any more questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
I hope we get a lot of that resolved before August the 28th.
Yes, please
Got a
try
little
to
bit of time.
resolve some of that.
Mr. President, item K under my section is to open a public hearing for the replacement of the official zoning map. And so at this time, we will open a public hearing, and I will ask if there is anyone here today who is intending to speak on the replacement of the official Rankin County zoning map. Is there anyone? Mr. President, I don't see anyone. I'll allow Renee at this point if there's anything to add. We talked this morning, the actual map is here on display. This map reflects zoning changes and amendments that have been in place and needed to be reflected on the map since 2010. There are 20 official changes that have been made that need to be reflected on the zoning map.
Is that mostly, let me ask you a question on that. Is that mostly due to any kind of error? Is that basically what happens is error in the zoning and everything?
Or if someone asked to have property rezoned or changed from one classification to another, then they're all, that's what these are, they're incorporated. We've done 20 since 2010. They weren't all map corrections, some were just actual requests
So if we
to
actually
change
have
the zoning.
some, if we actually have someone during the public hearing that wants to ask for a rezoning in that, we can take that matter up.
This is the public hearing.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Can you understand that question?
Is that correct?
Actually,
Are you trying to get somebody to
actually-
lose
No, I'm
I mean-
just asking.
Greg, that would be a new matter.
Right.
What we're doing here today in the public hearing that we're having here today is reflective of changes that have already been made.
Correct.
And so.
I just wanted to
the
make
answer to
that
your
clear.
question would be no.
Right. I just want to make that clear to make
Right.
people understand what that
Right.
truly means.
Right, and if an individual has an issue with the way that the property that they own is zoned.
Right.
We have a process to deal with that.
Gotcha.
But this wouldn't be the venue or the time.
And then we can update the map again in 4
That's
years.
correct.
That's right. Okay.
Is So at this time, we'll close that public hearing. It'd be appropriate to take action to adopt our new zoning map, or our updated zoning map.
Okay, do I-
Motion to adopt.
Got a motion by Mr. Johnson,
Second.
second by Mr. Bishop. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, the next item, you have a motion there before you, if you will.
Okay.
We need a motion to globally open our public hearing on our tax protests.
Okay, and this is the one that you have drafted for me?
That's correct.
Okay, in accordance with Mississippi law, I move that we open a public hearing to address the Rankin County real and personal property assessments rolls to allow the public to address the Board of Supervisors on any issue relating to value for the 2014-2015 tax roll as previously presented to the Board of Supervisors by the Rankin County Tax Assessor during its July 2014 meeting.
Y'all get all that?
So
Yeah.
I move that we open the public hearing.
That's right.
So I need a second.
That's correct.
I'll entertain a second.
Second.
I got a motion by myself and a second by Mr. Johnson. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, under Mississippi Code annotated section 27-35-89, this is a hearing to receive objections to tax assessments. This is done on an annual basis. It's done at the August meeting. This is the time for those who are protesting, objecting to the assessment that has been made by the tax assessor and which was published to you in July. This is the opportunity for individuals or entities and their representatives to bring forward the information that's set out by statute to place into the record an objection concerning an assessment. After the documents are received, the board has an opportunity to consider the information that they've heard, consider the recommendation of the tax assessor, and then take action as to whether or not to recognize the objection or to go with the tax assessor's assessment. Those are the options today. So with that explanation, we will take the first matter. We are in public hearing. Siemens Entergy Incorporated, that's Siemens Energy Incorporated. It's parcel D7N-10 and D7P-1. I'll ask if there is a representative for Siemens Energy present to approach the board. Yes. Please state your name and I guess name and what your position and or status is.
Thank you very much. My name is Patrick Price. I work for Ducharme Macmillan, and we do the property tax and sales use tax work on behalf of Siemens Corporate Tax Department. As part of that, we manage their property assessments all over the nation. We had expressed some concerns about this for the last couple of years. We want to first say, on behalf of Siemens, they appreciate their obligations to the community. They are not here seeking any tax breaks or any favors or special treatment. According to Mississippi statutes, all taxpayers are supposed to be assessed at their fair market value, just like your homes or the office buildings or apartment complexes. Our concern with that was there was no information from the market that would support the current assessment as a reasonable estimate of what this property could be sold for. In fact, it was almost double what you could sell this land and building for. Siemens, although they have exercised patience in this process, they're really at kind of a position that is untenable, which is they cannot knowingly continue to overpay property tax on an assessment that is this excessive. So we had produced market comparables, some analysis of our own informally that indicated this property's true assessment should be closer to $3.5, $4 million a couple of years ago. Failing to come to an agreement with the assessor and his staff, although we enjoyed our interactions with them, we did do what we felt was necessary, which is went out and hired a professional appraisal firm to come in and do a valuation study of the plant. We looked for a very reputable, credible firm, which turned out to be an appraisal research company. We had two different appraisers involved in this project. One was Mr. Joe Parker, the other is Mr. Curtis Gentry. They are both MAIs, which is the most highly regarded and distinguished appraisal designation in the country. has been for at least 70 or 80 years. Mr. Parker has been in the valuation field for 40 years and is also a CRE. Mr. Gentry has been in the valuation services for 20-plus years and has held the MAI designation for 13 years, I believe. He can correct me if I'm wrong. But what I would like to do is let him present to you the results of his appraisal work and what he believes the fair market value of this property to be, which in turn, by mandate in the state, should be its fair assessment and its equitable share of tax. We were asked to bring like 10 or 12 copies of this thing. I'm not sure who all needs one, but we have plenty. So if you would express a desire to have.
I think a couple of these guys over here, our main staff, would be great to have those.
And I'm pretty sure that Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Hamlin were already given a copy. John, do you need another? Okay.
I liked your opening statement where you had conversation with our tax assessor. That's pretty good. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Lots of reading material.
Yes. If you have trouble
I'll
sleeping
scan,
at night.
I'll scan through it right quick.
Please don't. We're not going to read it today, though, right?
We're not here to belabor the point, other than just produce the expert, let him express the summary of his conclusions, and field any questions that you may have for him. So at that, I will ask Mr. Gentry.
My name is Curtis Gentry. I work with Appraisal Research. We're in Flowood, Mississippi. Mr. Price engaged us some months back to do an appraisal on Siemens plant. We inspected the plant. Actually, we inspected the plant on June 13th, but we were asked to do the date as of January 1st. I can start off by saying that appraising industrial property in this state is probably the most difficult property to value. The values they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
It's further made complicated when you get over 100,000 feet. Right now, buildings over 100 and 200,000 feet, like the subject property, the market is really erratic. Buyers and sellers come into the state. If they find exactly what they're looking for, sometimes they'll pay a pretty good price. If the building doesn't match exactly what they need, there's plenty of properties for them to choose from. And there's a lot of bottom feeding going on, if you get my drift. In the case of the subject property of the Siemens plant, it's a manufacturing facility, which further complicates the problem in that people or potential purchasers in the manufacturing world can retrofit distribution warehouses, but manufacturing plants, they pretty much need to go manufacturing if they're going to be sold. They can't be used as distribution because they're not set up for it. Anyway, from a comparable search, we did two approaches, a sales comparison and income, and we estimated the value of the property at $4.9 million, which is the building and the primary site. And there was some excess land involved. Now, we didn't have any surveys or delineations. We estimated the excess land, and we just basically said, in the terms of the appraisal, that 29 acres, roughly, with the primary site being 30 acres. Total value of the excess land was $850,000. Which is over and above the $4.9 million we estimated for the Siemens plant sitting on its primary site. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer anything.
Let me get this straight, I guess. John, what did we assess it at?
Total parcel B7N is $8,632,806, and B7P1 is $939,990.
Okay.
It's basically requesting about a $3.8 million reduction, give or take.
Right.
Gotcha. And, I heard one thing, I guess, right off the bat was that you're not asking for any special favors or any, I'm paraphrasing, I guess, but then I look over to the next page and I notice, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I notice you're on the next page over here in Siemens Energy. Is that the same? That's the same? Under Rankin First, request approval ad valorem tax, is that the same?
I have no knowledge of that. The only thing I'm here for is this process.
Gotcha, okay. All right.
And just to conclude here, unless there are more questions, if you would look at Mr. Gentry's report, kind of starting on page 56, you'll see comparable sales. And I just wanted to point out that his firm did not go out into the market and cherry pick 3 or 4 low sales, properties that were in duress, foreclosures, liquidations. Instead, they chose about half a dozen. So 67 details all of these. And you can see building by building, when they were constructed, what size they are, how much land they had, where they were located, their use, manufacturing, and compare those to the subject. And all of these sales support their conclusion of value. And they support something significantly less than the current assessment. And so therefore, it would be very similar to your home, you knowing that its fair market value is $120,000 and it's being assessed at $210,000. That would be an untenable position for you as well. And that's where Siemens finds itself on the real property assessment. But again, if you have questions, want to go through the report in detail, I'm sure Curtis would be more than happy.
I can talk all day if you want.
Let me get a little bit from John. John, what would, can you give us a?
When they're finished, I'll be back.
Okay, as far as it sounds like that they're pretty much finished with your presentation of what.
I mean, yes, sir, just from an appraisal standpoint, I'm just hired to do a market value.
Right.
Tell you what I think. In the case of the subject property, being a 200,000 square foot plus 250,000, 70,000 light industrial manufacturing building, there's just not a lot of data currently to support the current assessment, in our opinion. The market seems to be sliding downhill when you're looking at buildings of this size. The best thing the property has going forward, at least in my opinion, was the location. The location is very superior,
Right.
in my opinion. In fact, if this building was located anywhere other than where it is, me personally, I would have appraised the property at sub $10 a foot. We put $18 a foot on it based on sales because of where it's located. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if this building was sitting, say, off of 220 or off of I-20 somewhere, and it was vacated, it may sit for 3 or 4 years before somebody picked it up, and when they picked it up, they'd probably be sub $10 a foot, in my opinion.
Okay. Any questions? All right.
Well, looking at all these that you presented us, they're all over the place.
Yeah, when you're dealing with a property like this, you can't, I mean, if I could stay in the metropolitan area, I'd love to. It's a regional property, it's
No,
got.
I mean, as in square foot price. They're all over the place.
Yes, sir. It's because there's no rhyme or reason.
It's a moving target.
Yes, sir, especially when you get over 100,000 feet. If you're 50,000 square feet or below, I can give you a range pretty much every time that buyers and sellers will come to a meeting of the minds. But once you get over 100,000 feet, it's how desperate is the seller, how long has it been sitting on the market, and right now there's so many choices out there. So you're going to get a wide range of consummated prices.
Well, maybe, let's listen to the tax assessor. Maybe he can bring us a little bit, how he came to that conclusion, because he's probably got the better understanding of how he came to that. And, let's see what we hear on both ends.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
They're absolutely right on the qualifications, they're qualified. The MAI designation is the highest designation that you can have, and like you said, the industrial property is by far the most difficult to value. But by definition, also, an appraisal is an opinion of value. They have their opinion, and they have the credentials to back it up. I have my opinion, and I have the credentials to back it up. If Siemens was vacant, I feel it would be worth that value. But it's not, and I feel it's worth the value that we have on it, and my recommendation to y'all is to accept my value.
Do you have, and I guess just to elaborate, I guess, when you do the assessments, you know, kind of like what Jay was saying, how do you come to, you know, because of with it being a moving target, how do you, is it easier for you? I mean, is it hard? I know it's tougher to try to come to that conclusion.
Well, we have basically
criteria.
your sites that you get industrial sales for. CoStar's the ones that most people use.
Right.
Like you said, if you look at the comps that he has, you can argue and make a valid point on $15 a square foot, $20 a square foot, $30 a square foot, because there's such a vast array of sales out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, if you want it lowered, you lean towards the lower sales. If you want it higher, you lean towards the higher sales. So, and the sales are, like they said, they're all over.
Mm-hmm.
So, it depends on which comps you use. And that's the same thing on valuing a house is whatever. You can have appraisals valuing a house that one may come up with $100,000, one may come up with $120,000. Who's right? You have your document. Each person has their documentation to say who's right. And it's an opinion. I mean,
Right.
by definition, appraisal is an opinion of value.
John, how long has it been since there's been an assessment done on this property?
We look at it annually.
Annually? And have you seen a rise or fall in that assessment?
Once again, that's open to, I mean, depends on where you look.
From year to year, I mean, on your books?
We made an adjustment for them in 2012, and I can't recall the exact reduction that we did make, but we did come to an agreement. Not everything that they wanted, but we did make some concessions.
So, sounded like it was higher back in 2012 then. Okay.
John, when your appraisers go out to do their assessments, I heard the gentleman that's in the appraisal business said they approached it from two different stands, sales approach and some other approach that they use for the appraisal process. What do your appraisers?
Well, I mean,
Is
mass appraisal is a little bit different than fee appraisal, but we do look at all three approaches to value.
And I know so much about all that I'm going to take my assessor's word for it.
All right, now, if there's nothing else, how do we?
If I might just make one closing remark,
Yes, sir.
if that's okay.
We're still in.
As Mr. Sullivan said, values are all over the place, and you saw that in the report. The one thing I would want you to pay attention to is those values are all over the place below $24 per square foot. They're anywhere from $5 to $24 per square foot. If you look at his 12 comparable sales that are in that appraisal, they're 24, 18, and then everything else is below $15 a square foot. He appraised the property at the upper end of any reasonable range. So the current assessment is $34 per square foot. There is no support for that. And so Mr. Sullivan mentioned the mass appraisal process. They're having to appraise thousands of parcels. We appreciate and respect that challenge. In contrast, we went out and hired an expert firm to come in and spend weeks putting a value on this. Wasn't cheap, to get that opinion formed. And I think it's very well documented, and we would ask that the board make their decision based on the weight of the evidence that's been presented. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, if I may, just to help you guys with what are your options in a situation like this. You don't necessarily have to make a decision now. I would, obviously, I will defer to your assessor as to whether or not the information that you have before you now can be taken under advisement, which is your right under the law to take it under advisement. You actually are not required to enter an order on an objection to a tax protest until the first Monday in September. And so we have a meeting, obviously, first Monday in September. And so you could, in fact, render an opinion. And this goes for every tax protest that we're going to walk through today. You have the ability to take it under advisement. I defer to our assessor to determine whether or not it would be useful or helpful for you to take it under advisement, to allow some sort of continued discussion about what you've had. I see that that's probably not going to be helpful. And so then, if under advisement is not going to be an option, your option is to follow the advice of your assessor or accept the recommendation being made by the protester and render your determination.
I think we're also about to give like a $3 million exemption here.
Well, and that's what I was referring to in the next page.
Is the public hearing closed?
No, sir. We're going to close the public hearing at the end of all of our
At
protests.
the end of all the protests,
You're
basically
authorized.
what we've got is we've got an open public hearing for all of them, and then
That's
at
correct.
the end, what we'll do is we'll take them one at a time and make that. Is that what I'm understanding?
Actually, we are ready to take action on the Siemens request right
Okay.
now.
So we can take action on this one.
I make
I
a
make a
motion.
motion to go with our tax assessor's recommendation.
Okay, I've got a motion by Mr. Morrison,
Second.
second by Mr. Bishop. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I also want to make it clear that we have received documents from Siemens. Those are now a part of the record, and I just wanted to make that clear in the minutes. The documents have been received.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So you through now?
No, he's not through. We're not even getting started.
Bring lunch.
Okay. Mr. President, item M, SEC Accommodator, Windsor Lake LLC. This is parcel number H8-10-40, represented by Assessment Technologies Limited. At this time, I'll ask if Ms. Hunt is here. Mr. President, I do not see anyone from SEC Accommodator Windsor Lake responding. And so at this time, it'd be appropriate for the board to receive the assessor's assessment and move forward.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Item N, Park 3 LLC, parcel D8C-8-14, represented by Audia Browler. This time I'll ask if Mr. or Ms. Browler is present. Jonathan, is there anything? Okay. Mr. President, I don't see anyone responding concerning item N, Park 3 LLC. It'd be appropriate to accept the assessor's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Hey, before you go on to the next one, how many do we have to start with that y'all had to work on?
As far as people that come in and complain, too many to count. But we get down to approximately 13, 14, it seems, every year
Yeah.
that we can't come to an agreement.
Yeah.
Then those we take extra effort to come to a compromise if they're in. And then in the case that we can't, then they'll bring their representatives in here to complain.
All right.
Okay. Well, these that don't bring a representative, I mean, if they're not willing to, you couldn't come to a compromise, but then no one shows up anyway.
Well, on a lot of these, we request information, and a lot of times when you ask them
Okay.
And the reason they don't respond is, this is my opinion.
Yep.
They really don't want us to see their income.
Right.
Okay.
They don't want to disclose all the information, basically.
Once you get their income, rent roll,
Right.
it's easy.
Bank statements,
All right.
recent appraisals that they have in hand.
Right.
Recent sales that they've been a part of contiguous properties. There's a lot of information that we have the ability to secure that help us understand what true value is
Well,
for that piece of
it
property.
almost could go up then, I mean, in all essence.
Well,
We have them.
Right. Let's move along then.
yeah, thank you. Item O, Wall Trust Properties Incorporated, parcel H11-29-20. Ernst & Young is representing. Is anyone from Wall Trust Properties present? Mr. President, I don't see anyone. We would take action to accommodate the assessor's determination of value.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Bishop. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Mr.
Motion
President,
carries.
item P is the same representative, Ernst & Young Custom Pharmacy Sale Leaseback LLC, H9A-2. Again, anyone from Ernst & Young or Custom Pharmacy Sale Leasebacks present? Mr. President, no one's here. I would suggest that we take the assessor's recommendation.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, the next one's going to be a little difficult to pronounce. It is
Bob.
Yeah, Shri Purushottam LLC, parcel I8M-24, represented by Mr. Dabilwali. Mr. President, I don't see
Yes, I can
anyone
do.
here who would go with that name, and so at this time, we would take the assessor's recommendation.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Bishop. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Item R, Richland Housing Association LLC, it's parcel D, 6G-27 and D6K-5, represented by Easley McCallum and Association, Inc. Mr. Knox? Anyone here? Mr. President, item R, we'll take the assessor's recommendation.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bishop.
Second.
By Mr. Morrison. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Item S, 660 Offices LLC, it's F10N-2-70 and -2-60, represented by Micah McCullough. Mr. McCullough? Okay. Mr. President, I don't see anyone. We'll take the assessor's recommendation.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Morrison.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bishop. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, item T, Gateway Development Incorporated, H9C4-60. Again, Mr. McCullough, is anyone here for Gateway Development? Mr. President, I don't see anyone. We'll take the assessor's recommendation.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Item U, Pearl Investco LLC, F9A-23. Is Mr. Conrad or anyone here on behalf of Pearl Investco? Mr. President, again, I don't see anyone. We'll take the assessor's recommendation.
Motion
moved.
approved.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, this time I'd take a motion to close the public hearing and to receive the document from Siemens Energy Incorporated into the record.
Put that in form of motion.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Slay. Mr. J.K. Stringer, Jr., County Administrator. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. President. First item is the approval of the claims document in the amount of $4,480,934.20.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Johnson, second by Mr. Morrison. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Next item is the authority to advertise notice of a public hearing for September the 2nd, 2014, at 9 a.m. on the proposed budget and proposed tax levies for fiscal year 2015.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
The next item is approval to accept Rankin County School District Board Resolution requesting funding for 2015.
Motion
So moved.
approved.
Motion by Mr. Johnson, second by Mr. Morrison. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
And the next item is the authority to advertise intent to set tax levy for Rankin First Economic Development Authority.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
And the next item I turn over to Mr. Troxler.
Good morning, Mr. Troxler.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are y'all?
Wonderful. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. As you know, several years back, the state legislature made it where the tax exemptions come in at the by a certain date so that they can all be done at one time instead of us coming every month or every other month to come see you. I'd like to thank John and Raymond for their work. The tax exemptions that are presented before you today were for work that was completed by December 31st, 2013. These are for existing industries and businesses or new industries and businesses that have moved to our county and created jobs and investment into our county. We have 7 different companies representing 9 different requests that the workup has been done by the tax assessor, John and Raymond. The Rankin First Board has approved these. They meet the criteria set forth by both of our boards several years back. And just one of the lucky things or fortunate things is that they actually represent 5 different locations and cities in the county, which shows that our growth in existing industries and new businesses is throughout the county and not in just one pocket. We're very blessed to have a county that is growing in all different areas, but we would request that you accept these exemptions for new businesses or growth in our county for the past year.
Motion approved.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Questions? I do have one question on, and are you talking about all of these in together?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The one that I did have is on the Blake at Flowood.
Yes, sir.
I want to ask you about that, my indication is Flowood did not give an exemption in that.
They did not. It does qualify under the healthcare legislation. It's very similar to the one that Flowood did grant for the, or will grant for the GI and Associates, but it is a part of the governor and the legislature's healthcare amendment. And my understanding is with Flowood, and I certainly cannot speak for them, is that they did not ask them before the fact. They did, however, request through Rankin First and Rankin County through the healthcare legislation that we would grant the exemption if they build it, since it is qualifying now under the new healthcare legislation.
Do you not foresee this to open a door on existing future developments like this?
Yes, sir, it's possible. Anything that meets the, legal state of Mississippi qualifications, I do. And we've also done the same with GI and Associates for their building in Flowood, which I believe Flowood did approve their exemption. But if it meets the criteria, there are dollar criteria and job creation criteria and investment criteria on all that is set forth by the legislature.
So your smaller entities may not qualify then, is that what you're saying?
A small entity would not qualify. It would have to be something similar to this or GI and Associates or whatever. A small medical clinic, and John may correct me if that, a small medical clinic I don't think would qualify. It has to meet the thresholds as set forth by the Mississippi legislature.
What about something like a peach tree or something like that?
I would think that they probably could. If they, now, it would have to be something new. Yes, it would have to be a new entity. And they would have to request it.
Okay.
Hey, don't worry, we're not gonna be getting all our existing ones piling in.
You sure?
No.
Well, I mean, the existing ones, and once again, I defer to John, but I don't think an existing one could qualify. I think this would be for any new activities that they did.
Okay. Well, I guess, like I said, I'm just a little concerned about, what a swinging door this could possibly create. because of the new law.
And we're happy to look at it if y'all
So,
want to look at it.
I
And
don't know if I want to go against the legislation that was just passed.
I'm not saying you go against it, I'm just saying that that's gonna, could open up a law, I mean,
And
basically.
as always, if we need to look into it for y'all and come up with some other alternatives on these particular things, we possibly can. It just puts y'all in the position of having to pick and choose, and that would be a decision you would have to
Which
make.
that's, I mean, that's kind of where it's putting us, I guess. That's what I guess I'm getting to, because it may have to pick and choose.
You may have to do that. I mean, that would be up to y'all. And right now, we haven't, as we've
Our
always
policy.
done, a policy to accept everything that
Right.
meets a certain threshold. So
Gotcha.
it would be a changing your policy.
Okay. All right, any more questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tom.
All right, we have F.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Now, the items F through, actually L, Mr. President, let me tell you why they're on the main agenda. They were taken off of the consent agenda as we got into an issue of not knowing what the action on the consent agenda was going to be. And these are items that absolutely have to be approved at this board meeting, or else we're interrupting business of the county.
Yes.
So you can really, if you would like, take action on those, or we can answer any questions on them as a group.
Well, can I just ask a question about F?
F, that's a good question. It's one of those deals, this is gonna be about the $500 issue that we've got to do to get a company that can respond and answer to fire alarm down at the safe room.
Is this annually or monthly?
Now, well, it's a annual, $500 annual fee to do that. And until we do this, we can't take possession of the safe room.
So it's a requirement because
It's a FEMA requirement.
Okay, all right.
Okay. I knew you were gonna ask that.
Yeah, that's, in fact, I asked Hoopy the same thing before we had the meeting, just to clarify exactly what that was, and it being a requirement from FEMA, it's one of those things to take occupancy of.
Okay.
So if you look through
So
it.
I would propose taking
Right.
F through, what, L as a
F through
group.
L?
Yes.
As one motion,
Yes, sir.
unless anyone has any objections on any one of them. I see we're getting looks like we're getting a dog, a Belgian.
Yes, so we've already paid it. A dog's sort of like a car. You get different options on it. And
Right.
a dog was a limit, so we had to send it back. We had to upgrade a little bit.
Well, I understand. Well, when I first read that, and you gotta be careful when you're reading something. I was reading this actually out loud, and I said, well, it looks like we're getting us a dog. Well, I actually said that in front of my children, so they're thinking we're getting a dog at the house, so they were excited. I said, no, this is the county.
Well, this dog,
We'll get the
dog
lemon.
we're trying to get is, options on the car, we're trying to get narcotics tracking and possibly down the road handle protection, but this dog was already trained on the tracking.
Yes, sir.
So initially we paid for a narcotics dog, but now we're paying to upgrade to narcotics and tracking dog.
Upgrade.
That's the upgrade.
Well, this is a minor law, but we're also in the process of negotiating a price on a bloodhound. Our bloodhound died, so we're trying
Oh,
to find a bloodhound.
So is this a German Shepherd?
Yeah, what type of dog is this?
2013 model.
No, that's the name of it, Belgian Malinois.
Oh,
So
yeah,
what is
yeah.
that?
What? Can
Is
you
that like a
That's
German
right.
Shepherd?
Would run rabbits?
They're trained man.
Oh, they-
Yeah, that's exactly what we need. Well, I love that. That's great.
Hey, Brian, do we have an officer that keeps these, or does it go to a
This
vet
dog is,
or something?
narcotics investigator Barry Bones going to keep this dog, and then the bloodhound of Ken Sullivan.
So is this like a German Shepherd, or?
It's a,
No, he's that,
they call it just a German Shepherd on speed.
well, you read it right there, Jay, it tells you.
Like y'all know what that is?
Yeah, I do, I know somebody's got one. They do look kinda like a short-haired
Yeah,
German
they're smaller
Shepherd,
than
kinda,
Shepherd, but they got a lot
but
more.
thinner. but a lot of times pretty tall, yeah.
I
Hey,
think
Bob,
it's-
what are we getting on our grant? What piece of equipment?
I'm putting in for a grant for $151,000, and believe it or not, it's all radios.
Oh, all right.
So if I get the grant, that's gonna cut once again, the price of the
That's
contract
wonderful.
down.
I
Yeah,
even,
that's
I even
great.
see no match required. I love that
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
It's great.
I make a motion to approve F through L.
Got a motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Johnson. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Brian, I know somebody's got one of those dogs, he had to put a top on his pen because the dog could climb, literally climb. Looked like a squirrel climbing up out of the thing.
Good. Okay, any additional business to be discussed?
Mr. President, I wonder if we could have a closed session, discuss personnel issues.
Okay.
Make
Wait,
a
just
motion.
hold on one second, John. Really, John? You need to talk to Janice. See her?
We're gonna add this. Housing Association,
Yes, sir.
They just sent an email from, at 9:41, that they accepted our values. These apartments are under that, section 42.
Yes.
Housing,
Right.
section
Yeah.
4100.
Right.
Chapel Ridge is very difficult to do because,
Right.
they have a percentage that are market, and they have a percentage for section 42.
Yes, sir.
We work with them trying to figure out what, of course, they wanted all values at section 42.
Right.
And I feel that we should value the units that are subsidized with the section 42, the ones that market at market.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
We were about $180,000 off on value, but they sent this email, or the company representing them, that they
Accepted.
ours, and it probably needs to be part of the record.
Okay, so do we need a motion on?
Just a motion to make that email a part of the record on our tax protest.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Morrison,
Second.
second by Mr. Bishop. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, John.
And do we have to, that's it?
No, sir, there's nothing, I mean, it's the assessor's recommendation.
I didn't know if
Okay.
we had to add it and
Yeah.
vote on it.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All right.
Since we've already, all we're doing is we're updating the record that we've already voted.
That we've already, right.
Okay.
It's just additional, basically, stuff. Okay, so do I have a motion to entertain the possibility of going into executive session to discuss personnel matters?
So move.
Got a motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, guys, and have a great day.
There's your thing.
Mayor Lee?
Remember, you started recording.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, yes, sir.
They would have done it if they had, like GI did before the fact. Well, but I mean, yeah, but I mean, they came to us for the GI before they started construction. An entity has to approve the company. Because like I said, we didn't look at this.
That one just kind of jumped out. I just didn't want to.
Oh, I understand. And I think the thresholds are pretty high. You're only gonna get like GI, places like that. If Peachtree had a 10, they said it had Oh, I know. That's it.
I gotta have a little controversy out there. I'm not doing something.
But I think it has to be a new one. But, yeah, I understand. But I think I would just make sure that I think it has to be new.
School lunch, 14.
Hey, Butch. Butch.
He said personnel, I don't know. I'm not sure. Hopefully it ain't all about Judy and John again. Or it's not about you and John now.
When I see John.
Because he was going to take one of y'all's.
Oh, you want to take
But if you, anything, let me know.
I guess that was the plan.
You know what I told him?
What?
It's fine. If she wants to go.
Yeah.
But she'd already told him. I think he was just throwing that at us. Y'all kind of played up.
I got you. Well, it worked.
It worked. But now she's staying over there.
Yeah. It works. He got more money, so. Oh, I wasn't going to vote for it. Then we had that stupid Flowwood thing on there, so. It's kind of hard for me to vote against, you know. I can't pick and choose, you know. No, I talked to Kyle. He said he's not doing that, so. Hey, Brett, what's the odds of us getting them radios, man?
I didn't even know anything about the grant. That was a Bob deal.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
It'd be pretty nice to get.
It'd be sweet, man. Heck yeah. Jeez, that's $150,000 we don't have to pay for. You must be needing you some Craig, huh?
Yeah, we are. Well, we're supposed to have a meeting after y'all's meeting, but y'all are going to executive session. I don't know if he's talking about what I need to talk about in the executive session or not. So I'm still trying to find out if I need to stay in here and go out, what I need to do.
I don't know. Guess we'll find out in a minute. As soon as everybody gets back corralled up. Well, what you know, man?
Y'all got through that thing a lot quicker than I thought you were when I looked at it.
Oh, yeah. We sit here, if all them people were to come up and do what that other guy did, we would have been here a while.
Yeah, you could have been here.
I think they would finally get the message, though. I mean, that maybe, I want to say that maybe why none of them show up.
You're probably right.
I think we're like 100%, you know, on doing that.
Yeah, it's a good record to have.
So let me tell you, none of us know anything about that. You know, so.
You got to depend on your people.
Yeah.
You got to depend on your people. But that guy obviously didn't know what
So,
you had mentioned.
what I talked to you about, Greg asked you about. So they're going to make him go back and recreate all this paper trail.
Well, that's what they've been saying, and get a timeline type thing.
Oh, he's fit to be tied then, huh? Sure.
That's probably.
You didn't want to get in the picture? You could have made us look a little better.
No. Yeah, I appreciate y'all.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, we talked to him about it. He don't want to do it, and part of the reason he don't want to do it is it's not going to hit me. I don't think. I don't know how he come up with them, but no.
How much money?
We'll see. All right, take care, baby.
Thank you, brother. I see you.
You don't appreciate me?
I said that.
Oh, okay. All right, I want to make sure.
Everybody appreciates Janice.
And, hey, don't try it. All right, I won't tell nobody if I did. Anyway.
So you know you heard about your club.
Yeah, you didn't even tell me that day. I had to find out when I got back from office.
No, he wasn't sure. He wasn't sure.
Okay.
See, that's the only reason I hate to say home screen.
Yeah. I don't think it's really public knowledge just yet.
There must have been something my dad
Yeah.
texted.
I'm looking forward to it.
Right here.
Public, being public knowledge, I mean.
It's been many years.
All right.
Boy, when you get arthritis in your hand, sometimes you can even
Oh, yeah.
shine you on there.
Well, I get it in more in my hands, and I
Well,
won't
I
go
do
into
too.
that discussion a whole lot.
Hoopy, what are we going to executive session for? Who, which department? Oh. All right.
I can't support that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the only place you need?
That's it. That's the only one. That's a pretty simple little deal.
You want me to copy this? Well, you need to take it, don't I?
Yeah, I'm gonna take it. So if you want something else, you better copy it. Because I probably will never send you a copy.
Okay, sorry.
Papers considered overhead at my place. Overhead is kind of nice.
Take this to the, Maria, and ask you to commit her and do it.
So you want me to do your work? Yes, ma'am. I don't mind doing your work.
That's fine.
You don't mind you doing, me doing your work. No big deal. Yeah, well, I gotta come back in here with my satchel over none of
Here,
it.
Janice, you want to have some reading material?
Thank
Good
you, I
God.
appreciate that.
Jeez.
But anyway, that's kind of what the deal is.
All right.
We're trying to, he's.
It's a lot of money, though, isn't it?
Craig would like
But he's not, I mean, he's moaning about it. I'm okay. On the other hand, he's not wanting to do what everybody's wanting because he's afraid he can't come up with something to justify. And I probably
The
don't.
president's not here yet.
Oh.
I can go.
Well, tell him to come
I'll be
on.
happy to do your work for you.
We're still recording.
I don't mind doing your work.
Tell him to come on.
Huh?
Tell him to come on.
I bet I.
Greg.
I don't know what.
So, what's the gentleman going to do? Yeah.
I suspect that they're gonna file a bill of exceptions.
What is that?
That's the way to appeal from this board, go to circuit court.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about close to $4 million from what I thought I
Yeah.
heard, right?
So we haven't paid it.
Pay a percentage of what he saves.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
Okay, you need to cut rear on.
Yes, ma'am.
That'd be a pretty good payday,
Make a
wouldn't it?
motion to go into, you discuss the need.
About 4 million.
You're gonna need to,
So we got to
Okay.
cut off our microphones?
No, we need
just
to make a
motion
motion, go
into
executive
shut
session.
down.
I make a motion, need to go in executive session,
Just discuss personnel.
discuss personnel.
Got a motion by Mr.
Second.
Morrison, second by Mr. Johnson. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.